I'm Jack Gibbons from the Ontario Clean Air Alliance. Thank you very much for the opportunity to talk with you this afternoon about OPG's application for a site preparation license for a new nuclear reactor in the GTA. Today, I would like to make two key submissions. Our first submission is that OPG's application for a site preparation license for a new nuclear reactor is not in the public interest, since we now have cleaner, safer, and lower cost options to keep our lights on. And our second submission is that given that we now have cleaner, safer, and lower cost options to keep our lights on, the Nuclear Safety and Control Act obliges you to reject OPG's application for a site preparation license for a new nuclear reactor. Specifically, I would like to draw your attention to two sections of the Nuclear Safety and Control Act. According to Section 3, the purpose of the Act is to limit the risks associated with nuclear energy. And according to Section 9 of the Act, the objects of the Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission are to regulate the use of nuclear energy to prevent an unreasonable risk to the health and safety of persons, to the environment, and to national security. And as a result, the Act requires you to reject OPG's application for a new nuclear reactor if it will create an unreasonable risk. And in order to determine whether or not a new nuclear reactor in the GTA, whether the risks associated with a new nuclear reactor in the GTA are reasonable or not, one must compare the costs and benefits of a new nuclear reactor to the costs and benefits of the alternative options to keep our lights on. And the alternative options include energy efficiency, they include wind and solar electricity, and they include Quebec water power. Now, back in the 1950s, we were told that nuclear energy would be too cheap to meter. And in the 1950s and in the 1960s and in the 1970s, most people in Ontario believed that nuclear energy was the only viable alternative to dirty coal. But President Velshi and members of the Commission, we're now in 2021. And in 2021, the alternative to a new nuclear reactor in the GTA is not a dirty coal plant. Today, the alternative to a new nuclear reactor in the GTA are energy efficiency investments, wind and solar electricity, and Quebec water power. And all of these options are cleaner, safer, and lower cost. And as a result, it is our submission that it will be unreasonable to subject present and future generations to the risks of a new nuclear reactor, given that we now have cleaner, safer, and lower cost options to keep our lights on. So in conclusion, President Velshi and members of the Commission, it is our submission that you are legally obliged, pursuant to the Nuclear Safety and Control Act, to reject OPG's application for a site preparation license for a new nuclear reactor, given that a new nuclear reactor in 2021 or 2030 would create unreasonable risks for present and future generations, given that we now have cleaner, safer, and lower cost options to keep our lights on. Thank you for your attention, and if you have any questions, I'll be pleased to answer them. We believe that a new nuclear reactor would create an unreasonable risk, so we're asking the Commission to reject this application for a site preparation license, since if it doesn't make sense to build, if it's not in the public interest, and if it's contrary to your act to actually build a new nuclear reactor, we don't believe that you should give OPG a site preparation license, which is the first step in the process. Given, in our view, that it doesn't make sense to build a new nuclear reactor, we don't think the CNSC should give them a site preparation license, which would just encourage them to spend tens of millions of dollars of more taxpayer money pursuing this option that we don't believe is appropriate. Your colleague asked about baseload energy, and I'm not exactly sure why he asked the question, but I can guess most people, when they raise this issue, they say that nuclear provides baseload energy, which is absolutely correct. And they point out that wind and solar are intermittent, and therefore there is a suggestion that wind and solar cannot replace baseload nuclear electricity. And it's certainly true that the wind doesn't always blow and the sun doesn't always shine. But Ontario and the GTA is very, very lucky to be located right next door to the province of Quebec, because Quebec has huge hydroelectric reservoirs, and those reservoirs can act like a giant battery for our wind and solar electricity. So by integrating our wind and solar electricity with Hydro-Quebec's reservoirs, we can convert wind and solar into a firm 24/7 source of baseload electricity. And so wind and solar, which we are promoting, and energy efficiency, and Quebec water power, which is also a source, can be a source of baseload power, can all replace the need for the proposed GTA nuclear reactor. And I would draw the Commission's attention to a study done at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology about two-way trade in green electrons, which has pointed out that Quebec's hydroelectric reservoirs are the lowest cost carbon-free form of backup or storage for wind and solar electricity. Thank you. In the last 10 years, the costs of the alternative to new nuclear have fallen dramatically. The costs of energy efficiency have fallen. The costs of wind and solar electricity have fallen dramatically due to technological improvements. According to the International Energy Agency, wind and solar are now the lowest cost sources of new electricity in most countries in the world. And as a result, the International Energy Agency is forecasting that on a global basis, 95% of the world's new electricity supply during the next 5 years will be renewables. And also, in the last number of years, the price of Hydro-Quebec's electricity exports have fallen dramatically. You know, a number of years ago, I believe their average price for their exports was around 10 cents a kilowatt hour. But last year it was just 4.3 cents a kilowatt hour. So our point is for you to determine whether or not the risks of a new nuclear reactor are reasonable or not. The only way you can answer that is by comparing it to the alternatives. If the alternatives are all much, much more expensive or much, much dirtier in terms of climate pollution, then there will be a strong case for approving a new nuclear reactor. But if the alternatives are all cleaner, they're all safer, and they're lower cost, then we believe the Act obliges you to reject OPG's application. And I would say to you, in the last 10 years, the facts have changed. Costs have come down dramatically for the alternative options. I'd like to respond to the OPG representative. I just want to make it very clear that the International Atomic Energy has not said that we need to build a new nuclear reactor in the GTA for Canada to meet its climate obligations. We are very committed, the Ontario Clean Air Alliance for Canada, to meet its climate obligations. And as an economist, we are promoting the options that are the lowest cost, the cleanest, and the safest. And we see no purpose, no public benefit to creating highly toxic radioactive waste. It will create risks for future generations for hundreds of thousands of years when there are cleaner and safer and lower risk options to keep our lights on. Thank you very much.